So it's a stunning setting here. I have the beautiful Cork coast right by my cottage here, where I'm speaking to you today. And the reason why I wanted to create this particular video is in our wonderful cottage, which is outside Clonakilty, which is in Southern Ireland, pretty far southwest. It's quite a remote little village. There are just the houses here and some very friendly dogs that come running by. We have fantastic broadband, so connectivity here is absolutely wonderful. And what it reminded me of working with a gentleman that used to work for Oracle, and he ran a virtual team of sales consultants from his beautiful lodge on Vancouver Island in Canada. Now, a pretty remote location given that his team were predominantly in EMEA. And we worked with him some years ago on looking at virtual teams and virtual leadership. And coming to a place like this where lots of people would be an idyllic place to come and set up, there's no reason at all why many people can't choose locations like this today with the fantastic connectivity that lots of countries are investing in now to ensure that we have high-speed broadband. But because of this change in dynamic and behaviour and using technology in this way and working remotely, we often assume that people will be comfortable with this style of working and will feel supported, will know how to reach out via tools such as Skype and create their personal learning networks with Twitter, use webinars, virtual meetings, etc., collaborative spaces like Basecamp online, lots of cloud systems, that we can all do this. But actually it takes some conscious effort by organisations to ensure that people that work in this way are well supported. So now I'm back here in the UK, and I could well be the manager of this virtual team based in the UK, perhaps with other colleagues. It could be that I'm the only person in this office, and just like my colleague at Oracle, I could be dealing with product managers across the globe. And it means that just by this very definition, we could have lots of different communication and working pattern dynamics going on here that I need to manage. A lot of leadership models or methods by which people develop people into first-time management and have virtual members of the team, so people working remotely, they don't reflect this change in dynamic. We make the assumption that because of the way that we communicate with our friends and family outside of work has shifted so dramatically in the last few decades, that this will naturally give us a comfort in this shift in working pattern in our working lives. But actually, just as we've had to learn the rules of the game in communicating online, it does change the dynamic and the way in which people work and get the best from people in the workplace. We do a lot of work with customers trying to understand the best way to support their leaders and teams in maximising virtual teams. And virtual teams require some specific considerations it's worth you thinking about. One key consideration is effective communication. Now, that may sound blindingly obvious, but silence speaks volumes when you're working with a virtual team. So understanding how people can communicate with you, how regularly you're going to communicate with them and what methods you're going to use, how they can ask for ad hoc support when they need it, but also predictability in terms of coming together with the rest of the team. This is really important to have clearly defined at the start of your virtual team. Having ambiguity here can make people feel distant from the virtual team. And that goes on to our next point, the point of trust. In order to maximise the productivity and capability and talents of your team, trust is going to be incredibly important. And we know that that's important with co-located teams, but with virtual it's even more so, because those opportunities for those conversations over a cup of coffee to find out about people's family and friends, things that you bring with you to work, they do impact then your ability to be able to innovate, collaborate, to share real feedback with each other. Those are typified by strong trust within the team. So as a virtual leader, you need to think about ways in which you can build those social bonds and trust within the team. And that can be facilitating small groups to work together. In fact, your role as a virtual leader and virtual team management is much more akin to facilitation. And as we know, lots of organisations are getting a lot flatter in their design. And virtual working and remote working is a key driver for this. One of the big bonuses of having virtual teams, of course, is you've got this diaspora of experience and insight and perspective, learnings from all sorts of different markets, different customers that you can bring to bear and share in other areas of your business. So it can mean massive profits and huge opportunities for innovation. But you need to facilitate that rather than drive one single route. You never know what's going to happen. I've seen some fantastic examples where significant revenue has been generated through a conversation facilitated by a virtual team leader. Another key consideration is having the right people on the bus. So just like co-located teams, virtual teams need design as well. So it's thinking about the different roles you'll have in the team. And the reason why this can be particularly useful to think about in a virtual working context is it gives people real clarity of role. Bearing in mind, you're not going to be with them every day. And just as we said before, with this silence speak volumes, there will be time when you simply won't be in communication with them. So clarity on role and objectives and tasks is really important, not just for the individual, but for the whole team to understand the dynamic of how you're going to deliver things together. So when you're spending time forming the team, understanding roles and responsibilities and working on that collaboratively so that everybody knows what everyone else is doing, that needs to be consciously thought about. Don't make assumptions there. That conscious effort there will really reap value in the long run. And your enabling technology and the ecosystem that you put around your virtual team is really important. And that may not necessarily mean investment in new technology, but again, making sure your team understand what tools you're going to use and when. So are you going to be using Skype and Instant Messenger? Are you going to be setting up a group on your SharePoint platform? Will you be creating some sort of community site? Do you have cloud-based tools such as, for example, here at Willow we use Basecamp for projects and customers to work together? Which tools are you going to use? For what purpose? Who's going to be managing them? What are the ways that we can maximise those? And make sure your team feel comfortable to ask whether or not they actually need some support. You may make the assumption they're very comfortable with that technology, but perhaps a little bit of training will go a long way. And I know that all of you won't be in a position to do this, but if you are, please try and lobby for some time when you can bring the team together. I know budgets are under scrutiny. I know that finding face-to-face time and getting international travel in place, or even sometimes domestic travel, can be a real challenge. But having the opportunity for the team to come together, particularly when the team is forming and then at critical points in projects that you're trying to deliver, it can be an incredibly useful investment. An investment in the long term will absolutely return on the investment that you make in that travel and that time for them to work together. As we said before, one of the key dynamics from research in effective virtual team working has been trust. And to form that trust, understanding those bonds, understanding each other, that's really important. And although you can go a long way online, face-to-face really is fantastic. I would say from my own personal experience, I have a fantastic personal learning network that I've developed through getting to know people on Twitter, through various different discussion groups and groups on LinkedIn. But the reason why I try and make the investment to go over to events such as DevLearn every year is being able to see people face to face, to talk about the things you've been talking about online, to be introduced to others, have strengthened those bonds more than I could have possibly imagined, and have been incredibly useful for me. So just being able to touch base once a year has been really, really valuable. So I'd thoroughly recommend that if you can, with your stakeholders, lobby for that face-to-face time, because it can really yield benefits in the productivity of your team. So that's just a little bit on virtual teams and virtual leadership. If you'd like any more support in this area, we'd be delighted to speak to you. This is one of our favourite topics. So if you want to get in touch with us, visit us at www.WillowDNA.com. You can follow us on Twitter at WillowDNA. We're also on LinkedIn. We're active on all of the social networks. And you can follow me at Lisa Minogue-W as well. I'm very regularly on Twitter. And look forward to seeing you on our next vlog.